Okay, Violeta, so it's 5 o'clock. Do you want to kick this off by waiting or by having people say something or talking? How about if we just say a prayer and we start? And then
Hi,
people come
Esther.
on board. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Esther Bradley Detali. Esther, oh my God.
You're muted, darling. We can't hear you.
She has to unmute herself.
Renee Dixon sends her love. And I'd let a lot of people know you were doing this.
Oh, how
Oh my
nice.
God.
I'm on my cell. I couldn't do it on my iPad, but I'm going to try to find you on my iPad now.
Oh,
Okay.
so nice to see
Do you
you.
want me, I'll just
Okay,
send it
Violeta.
to you by email so you can find it on the iPad, okay?
Okay, you're so good. Hi, guys. I love you.
I'll just send it to you right
So,
now. Don't worry about it.
Violeta,
Yes.
can we have Sylvian say a prayer in Arabic, please? A short one?
Okay.
We can start from the Bab or Baha'u'llah, if you can.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I like how specific you are. That's very adorable. Esther, you look wonderful. You look so good.
I'm thatched. Yeah, I have hair now. I grew it out a little.
Listen, you change your glasses, Esther. I don't recognize your glasses.
99 cents, But anyhow, yeah, whatever. 82 at the end of the summer, kids.
Wait, what was I going to do? I was going to do something.
Wait,
right.
Good.
Sylvian is coming. So we have LSA Belgaum, we have Claudia, we have Del Sabeti. And the Sudabe still there?
Yes, Sudabe and Fariba are still there.
Violetta, did you send me an email?
I am just sending it in 1 second.
Okay.
Esther,
As we speak.
Zoom link.
Many are muted on the.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the way that Zoom works is that there's a way that people do things is that whenever someone else is talking, everybody mutes themselves, because sometimes, like if they have a fan or they have like a wind blowing, then it can affect the microphone and it can make an interference for everyone else to hear the person who's speaking. So generally there's one person speaking and many people are muted. So that's why you see a lot of people muted, because if everyone unmutes at the same time, there's going to be a lot of noise. So it's sort of a tradition in Zoom, or like, I don't know, it's etiquette. You should have it right now, Esther.
Okay.
So are we waiting for Sylvian, Violeta?
Yes, because his chair's empty. He's in the top right up there.
Yeah, I know. He went to get a prayer book, Arabic prayer book. Okay. Welcome, everybody, all these wonderful faces, wonderful souls. Oh, wow, wow. Madame Abbasi is there. Oh my gosh, the whole world is there. This is half of humanity is online here. This is incredible. So we're waiting for Sylvian.
Humanity is online.
I'm right here. Yeah.
Take it, Sylvian.
Ready?
Yes, please. You can chant it too.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bismillah. سبحانك اللهم يا إلهي أسألك باسمك الذي به قبضت الروح كل الأشياء وأحييت مرة أخرى بما قدرته في سماء القضاء وبه سرع الموحدون إلى مشهد الفناء والمخلصون إلى مقر الفداء وأنفقوا أرواحهم حبا لجمالك وشوقا لوصلك ولقائك بأن تجلني من الذين انقطعوا عن الأسماء وتمسكوا بنفسك الأعلي الآباء وإنك أنت المقتدر على ما تشاء لا إله إلا أنت العزيز المختار.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. Thank you.
شكرا للواجب أستاذ.
Ah, Sylvie, you're a great man. Thank you so much. Welcome, Esther. Welcome, everybody. All these nice faces. So, can we kick this off, you guys?
Yes.
Yes? All right. Well, as you know, this is a celebration of teaching and teachers. You know, that's it. This is not a prepared talk. This is just my experiences and your experiences, and you know, I will always throw things out that are really kind of basically ordinary, simple things. You know, not heavy duty. For the simple reason is that most of you are basically deep in Baha'is and veterans, and you've done so much that I don't even know why you're listening to me. But anyway, I guess you are listening, so I must have something that of minor interest. So I just kick few things, you know. I will first of all say I took some note on my iPhone, and lately I've been sort of looking at major Baha'i teachers, which is extremely depressing, because it's very hard for any of us at this point in our lives to either become Dr. Muhajir and go and shake up the world and mass teaching in India and wherever he's been day in and day out. Just you have to look at his wife's book, which is this thick, about 3 inches thick. Or very difficult to compete with Martha Root. I mean, who on earth is going to do anything that she's ever done? And Ruhiya Khanum, I just think what she's been doing. So if you look at that, if you look at them and you read about them, you're totally depressed. I mean, you know, what can you do? But then again, you know, we can't all be this or that. You know, there's no way. So, and God is not asking any of us to be Martha Root or Dr. Muhajir or Ruhiya Khanum. Then he's not asking that. I don't think it doesn't say anywhere that we should be like them. We should be like Abdul Baha, which Abdul Baha was an exemplar, and he was teaching all the time. And of course, so basically, if you look at them, you can get inspired. You hear things that are. Sorry, I need to speak louder. Can you give me those books that I put over there, please? Now, so we talk about Baha'i teachers, and then we talk about Baha'is. Who is a Baha'i? Now, this Baha'i business is very, very frightening, because as I was reading something to see the standards of Baha'is, what is a Baha'i? A Baha'i should be like Abdul Baha, right? You read Ruhiya Khanum. Amatul Baha visits India in the 1960s. I mean, you know, I told you that you should read Success in Teaching, and you should read, if you can, Visit to India. She said, this is what she says. When our beloved Shoki Effendi died in 1957, I said that the only Baha'i we had in the world had died. Can you imagine? I'm going to tell you that again, because she said it twice in that book. When the beloved guardian Shoki Effendi died in 1957, I said that the only Baha'i we had in the world had died. Now, of course, we all know that, you know, I mean, she's making a point about the devotion. So to kick this off, I just wanted to say that we should all basically find a way to celebrate whatever we do, right? Like when Baha'u'llah says, you have to bring yourself to account every day and so on, and supposed to take stock of what you do. Assuming that one of the purposes of Baha'is not only is to live a good life and to be nice to people and to and basically, as Rohia Khanum says, salvation and be saved and go to heaven and all that, is to spread the word. I mean, you really have to find ways to teach. And she said, this is a responsibility. Responsibility is something major. It's like when if somebody gives you kids to watch and say, okay, I'm going to give you my kids to watch. You're responsible for them. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to sleep? You better be awake, because if you're not awake, these kids are going to create havoc and they're going to destroy your house, or they're going to do crazy stuff. So obviously, responsibility means you really have to be in charge. Like when you're driving, you have to look in front of you, otherwise you're going to get killed. So teaching is a responsibility, and most of us, or all of us, do it in different ways. As you know, teaching, there's so many ways of teaching, so many ways of planting seeds. And all of you have been planting seeds forever. I mean, Esther was in Russia, and she did amazing things in Russia. You just have to read her book. Or Sudabe was pioneered, I don't know, I think in Sicily or some other country. And my wife was pioneered in Corsica. I don't know where all of you have been pioneering or teaching, but the point of that is it's all about planting. And you plant, and you never know what happens to your planting, because we are not supposed to be following people that you planted seeds. Sometimes we are lucky, like I gave you examples last time, when you discover that the seed you planted bore fruit, and you're amazed because you hear maybe 10 years later, 20 years later, that's what happened. So, but the point I wanted to make at this point is that we should look at teaching as a bouquet. We should all make bouquets of our teaching work. Whatever we have done, we have to go back and remember what we've done. Make out of that a bouquet. It's an offering to God. Now, a bouquet is what? A bouquet, it means many things, because teaching means sometimes mentioning to somebody that you're Baha'i, and you shouldn't be afraid of mentioning it. Raya Khanum makes the point that some Baha'is are afraid to mention. And mentioning the word, showing somebody an article about it, sending an email, sending a quotation in WhatsApp, you know, putting a pen, and people go by and they look at your pen, go to a coffee house and put some pamphlets on the table and leave. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's no one set of things that you should do. The point is that you have to mention the name, and you have to share, because it's about sharing. Because if this faith is important to you, and it's Baha'u'llah came for humanity, not just for you or me, you've got to somehow make sure that people hear about it. Because if you don't, and we let days go by, the danger is that we are going to regret it one day. So we don't want to regret it. So you basically keep planting the seeds and make bouquets. And one bouquet will be somebody that you remember that you taught and declared and became an active Baha'i. Somebody else that knows of the faith and loves the faith. He's not a Baha'i, but he thinks that you really are wonderful people. That's a second flower in your bouquet. A third one is somebody mentioned that is maybe important person that says, oh, your faith is good. Thank you for sharing. That's another bouquet. And you keep adding flowers to your bouquet. You know, we may have in a bouquet 20, 30 flowers, 40, 100, I don't care. But we can't expect that out of this bouquet, you're going to get always people that are going to become, you know, believers immediately, because that's not your problem. Because there is a question of receptivity and response. We are not responsible for the receptivity, nor for the response. We are responsible for opening our mouths. Baha'u'llah speaks of lips. We all got 2 lips. So you've got to open the damn lips, because if you don't open it, nothing's going to come out. Unless you're a brilliant human being, and all you have to do is just walk down the street, and you're going to shine so brightly that you're going to they may shut off the street lights, you know, because you're going to be lighting up the neighborhood. But if that's not the case, because you're afraid you're not that holy yet, so you have to open your lips and say something. And you can't be afraid, because, I mean, I'm going to connect to the other point, is that there's a major difference between opening your lips in Pasadena, in Los Angeles, in New York, and in India, in the boondocks, in Africa, because the people listen differently. I mean, it isn't because in Africa they are receptive, they listen to you, doesn't mean that they're going to believe you, because they are probably more evangelized than anybody in Europe. In Europe, people have left their faith. You know, they are labeled maybe, oh, I was born a Catholic, but I don't go to church, you know, that kind of stuff. In Africa, they don't say that. They're really steeped down in religion, but they will listen to you. So you have a problem. Either some listen to you, and as Ruhiyya Khanum says, they're like rock you can plant, or here they listen to you, but they don't always jump. They're not there, just jump at you. Say, oh yeah, I believe in you, because sometimes they don't, because they have been so well taught by the Protestants and the Christians and the Catholics that they won't budge from their faith. But you never know. So the receptivity, maybe in the north, in the south, east, west, you can't always say that they're not receptive in Europe, because it's not true. Because there is, if you talk to 100 different people in London, in Pasadena, LA, you're going to find that those hundreds are not all PhDs. They're not all working for IBM or for Google. They could be people sweeping the streets. It could be immigrants. Who knows? So you have to find them. But receptivity doesn't mean that the response is going to be always great. But that's not your problem. The problem is that what you speak, you've got to speak a little bit correctly, nicely, and use Baha'u'llah's words. And then hopefully that person you might see again or you might not. If you never see him again, you're out of luck, because you never know what will happen to him. And there's no way you can write up any report on anything, because you don't know, the guy will disappear. He was coming through the town, he's gone. There's no way you're going to put a GPS on the guy to find out that 10 years later in Alaska, he became a Baha'i. That's no way. So totally ignorant of what happens to people. If he's a friend of yours, then he might become just respectful of your faith, and he'll smile at you, and and then you can say, well, I taught him. And then once in a while, somebody will accept the faith. Now, so the important thing that you have to remember is that we have to celebrate and make bouquets. That's my point in this last few minutes, is that we all have done amazing things. All of us sitting here, all of us. Now, of course, we cannot, if you want to speak, you want to tell us what your bouquet is, you can just I'll stop talking and you can tell about your bouquet. But the point is that we've got to celebrate what we have done and rejoice. And if we haven't done as much as we should have done, maybe we sort of, after this kind of discussions we have or sharing, and then maybe within next week, you sort of will end up doing more. Now, let me come back to my example, because I'm kicking off this thing, so I'm telling my example. Last time I talked to you about Komono. Komono, you remember the story of Komono? Komono is the guy that works for me at the school. And they have no job for him in the summer because school is closed. So he's working as a worker. He's picking up stones and moving furniture, because we're destroying our buildings and we have to move out of the school. And so he needs money. Everybody's broke here. So he's working. I told you that he helped me bring a case to the house. And as I was getting books out of the case, I saw the book on Baha'u'llah. His name was there. And then the photo of Abdul Baha. So I said, do you know about this faith? He said, oh yeah, I know. But somebody promised me a book and never gave it to me. Anyway, so I managed to corner him in my house, and he could. This is a captive, what they call a captive audience. He has no choice. He has to listen to me. So it's not fun, but what can I do? I do what I can. So he listened very nicely, and then didn't do anything afterwards. He didn't. So I was sort of surprised. How come he never came to me a day or 2 or 3 days after and told me, you promised me, a book or something? So I asked my driver, who's a Baha'i, a young guy, who was witnessing that discussion when he saw the books and the photo of the Baha'i. He says, no, he talks to me about the faith. He just doesn't like to talk in front of people. Like if we are 3 of us, he doesn't raise the subject. But if we are two, he talks to me. So then I said to him, so I waited a day or 2 to say, what can I do without pushing him? I said, Komono, you never really asked me about the book. You said you wanted the book. Say, Mr. Kamal, I'm so tired at night when I go home from work that I just lie down. I can't read books when I'm working. I can only read them on the weekends. When I just can't. They're exhausted. So I said, okay. So finally, I decided to give him 2 books. In this country, we give prayer books. In Europe, I guess if you give somebody prayer books, they may run so fast like Hussein Bolt. You never see them again. But here they love prayer. So I said, hit him. And they usually give that and the New Garden, or Baha'u'llah and the New Era, which is a heavy duty one. And the New Garden is great, of course, but New Garden was written by Fatih Azam for India. But anyway, it's available. This time I thought of giving him one that says Baha'u'llah. I figured, why on earth are we bothering always giving books about Baha'i faith? Because, if the Christians they say Jesus. Have you heard of Jesus? Did Jesus save you? They never say, can I teach you about Christianity? They don't know Christianity, they don't know Jesus. So I figured, listen, let's be Christians, let's give them Baha'u'llah. So I figured, let me give him Baha'u'llah and see how he fares. So my advice to you is to do the same. Now, when you give books, my other advice to you, because I'm such a professional expert in teaching, because I know nothing, but I make believe that I do something. Tell them the book is not for you to keep. Tell them, I want the book back. You follow me? Because if you give a book away, you either never get the book, you never hear about him, you never get any feedback. But if you loan the book, the guy is stuck because he has to give it back to you and say something. He's going to say, oh, I didn't understand this, whatever. And you can actually corner him. Say, you didn't read it? He said, no, I read 1 page a day. You say, okay, fine. So just make sure the book comes back, whatever it is, even if it's small. I mean, you can't get back a pamphlet, but you can get back a New Garden or Baha'u'llah. Because oftentimes people just, I don't know how they read. We don't know exactly what they're thinking. We don't know. So in order to get the feedback, you just tell them, give me back the book, please. And maybe give you something else. Anyway, and you have to remember that basically, when we are teaching people, sometimes the reason why some people might be more receptive to you than others is some people have been disappointed in their own faith. I mean, you never know that unless you let them talk. So another point that we have to all make among ourselves is that you've got to do a lot of listening. I mean, I'm not an example because tonight I'm the one chatting, I'm just talking, but basically let the people talk. So I felt guilty about not listening to him talk a lot. So when he came back to my office the other day, when we were moving up and down, I sat down for a few minutes. I said, listen, I want to talk to you some more. So he thought I was going to tell him about Baha'u'llah. I said, no, tell me about yourself. I don't know what you've been doing for the last 40 years because he's been working for me, but he has a history. So he started a history from high school. When he left high school, his parents separated, and then he couldn't get a job because nobody could pay for his education. So he ended up buying fish from the Chinese and salting them and sending salted fish throughout the country. And then he went to work for companies, and it's a long story. Anyway, so he talked and talked and talked. I was just amazed at how he was saying, and I figured this was my time to listen, So that's that. But then I come back to the point about people being disappointed in religions. Now, I tried to go through a book. I told you why they became Baha'is. It's kind of exciting and not too exciting. I mean, there's a famous Baha'is. They're very famous Baha'is. But one of them that was interesting to me, I never heard of, he's Japanese. So I was tickled by that. It's a nice picture here. See if you see this guy? You may know him, you may not know him. I don't know if you know him. I never knew him. His name is Mishitoshi Zenimoto. I don't know who knows Zenimoto, but there's like 10 million Baha'is. I mean, we can't know the story of everybody, although they're all exciting stories, basically.
Can I see the picture again?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, this guy became a bit famous because he was really in NSAs and all that. But the interesting thing about what turned him on the faith, why he became receptive, is because his mother was this very staunch Protestant. So he became a Protestant. We all tend to follow our parents, basically. I mean, whatever you are, it's your parents, you follow. And then after that, you end up leaving or not leaving. So he said, he was working, he was in and he was in Hiroshima, Hiroshima. You've heard of the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the bomb that hit it, he was there. And for some reason, he didn't die. Probably the only one in the whole Hiroshima. He says, as a young fellow in Hiroshima, I was working as a road worker building a new road. While at work, the bomb fell. I mean, he's talking like the bomb fell like it's like a piece of apple that fell. I mean, it's the atomic bomb, but he doesn't say atomic. Almost all were killed. But I was spared. There was a small hill, and I must have fallen against it. I was saved in a mysterious way. Okay, so that's how the biography starts. That's how he tells it. This story is either autobiography or biography. Very short. So now, Mr. Zenimoto then continues and says, As I grew older, I wished to study Christian ethics, and accordingly, he enrolled in theological department of a Christian university. Okay, that's his story. And one day in 1951, an American missionary came to give a lecture to the students. He spoke of sin and salvation, stressing that the last and only revelation of God was through Jesus Christ. He's making his point, that's it. The only Christ, and that's it. So God's only Son, while listening to him saying that one could never be saved unless through atonement by Jesus Christ, I wondered about my ancestors who were never reached by the gospel. So the guy gets up and says, so after his talk, I stood up and asked a question about this. His smiling face changed, and he asked me if I was a Christian student of the theological school. I said I was, and requested an answer to my question. Instead of answering my question, he said that if we were a true Christian, I would never ask a foolish question. So very soon after, the university regents met to discuss my eligibility as a student and decided to expel me from theological school. He was expelled from the school. See? That kind of thing happens in many cases for different reasons. And because of that, I don't want to tell you the whole story, otherwise you're going to be here all night. He met somebody. Who did he meet? This is such an interesting story, is that the guy eventually did something else. He became an engineer, and he started taking care of the blind. He figured there was a way to help blind people to be educated because nobody was taking care of blind people. So what did he do? He said he studied political science. I met a blind student on campus. He said he had no friends there and had difficulty studying, for there were no textbooks available in Braille. So what happened is that he started an association to help the kids that were blind to read, to understand. So at one point, you never know what happened. In 1952, there was an American woman that came to Japan. She introduced herself as Miss Agnes Alexander. Figure this one. So Agnes Alexander comes in and she tries to help him with his teaching, because she could do that, teaching the blind. And to begin her class, she used the Baha'i child's ABC as a textbook. And none of the students had ever heard a native speaker of English speak. She read for us, A is for Abdul Baha. It was my first encounter with the Baha'i faith. This lady was 76. Okay, so you can imagine what happened to this man. He became very active, amazing, NSA, board, I don't know, he became a giant. So the point of this is not so much about Agnes Alexander, although that's very exciting. She's 76 and she's really teaching actively like a lot of older people that are amazing teachers. But that because he was disappointed because they shut him up. And so in many Christian places or other places, they can't bear, anybody sort of discussing, arguing, or asking questions. So those are the people that haven't been hardened 100%, that still are seeking, and that basically, so if we listen to them, if we listen a lot, then we probably be able to teach. So we have to develop the art of just listening to people, because you never know what's going to come out. Because the danger is, if we talk too much, people are going to be turned off, because they either think that you know too much, or you're not sensitive to them, so you're stuck. So you got to be very sensitive to that. So moving on, if anybody wants to interrupt, go ahead and shoot.
I just want to say that there's a comment in the comment section that says that rejection is God's protection.
Sorry, repeat that again.
Rejection is God's protection.
Meaning?
It leads you down the road to something better.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that means when you are rejected sometimes in life, and you are disappointed and sad about it, but a lot of time that rejection is really God's protection for you.
Okay, you're applying it to this man who was rejected by the Catholic, by the Christian people. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can see how it works.
Yeah.
I have one comment.
Go ahead. Who's
C,
speaking?
Esther,
Yes.
C is for courage. Strong ships are not conquered by the sea. That was in the little book. I used to teach my son that. A is for Abdul Baha. I don't know what B was, must have been Baha'u'llah. C is for courage. Strong ships are not conquered by the sea.
Mhm. Wow. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, so here we are. Now, when we are teaching, you know, I mentioned receptivity, north and south. I mean, the way we all live, north and south, is like day and night. You know, this, you know, teaching in places up there with the suburbia, where people have these wonderful homes, and you know, and how do you reach these people? I remember I wasn't teaching, but I was in the eastern part of Zaire, of Republic of Congo. I was filming for USAID. I was doing something, and I don't know how I managed to escape from that. I went to a Baha'i village in near the forest of Virunga, and they say, "Come and see these pygmy Baha'is." And the Baha'is had taken care of them because they were kicked out of the forest. They couldn't they kill animals, so they had to learn how to become agricultural people and plant. So they started to plant, right? I don't know how they. So I just walked in with a camera, tried to sort of shoot as much as I could of what I could see of these people, and they were playing amazing music, you know, with plastic, sort of playing drums with cans, plastic cans, and all that. And then I went to see this older man who was living in a hut. I was amazed, you know. This hut is like a teepee, like that, you know, like 3 sticks and leaves around it. And he would walk inside it, and he was boiling in some fire, some water. Jesus said, how people live? I mean, it's amazing. But so, you know, I mean, so of course we all say, yeah, wonderful. This is very typical. It's great. Look, this is how people are natives. But you know, this business of native stuff in villages, you know, French villages, you know, they are wonderful. People have TV, they have antennas, they have cars, they have cows, you know. So we cannot promote poverty and say, wow, we should all be like that, because the guy is like this because he can't get out of there. There's no other way, no solution in his life for him to move from that hut. That's how he was able to boil his soup. So of course I filmed it a little bit, and I realized that, you know, that's the reality of people. But I mean, Baha'u'llah is not asking us, it is not us that is going to make him become like a French peasant today, because he's in a system that, you know, more or less is corrupt, and poverty is just the rule of law, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change unless there is a major world revolution, a spiritual revolution, because we've had many revolutions and nothing has changed. I mean, you know, we had, look at the Zaire was under Leopold, King Leopold. Leopold, he was a very Christian guy, and he was milking the country, right? And he was taking all the stuff he could get out of it, and people had to climb trees to get the latex for him to sell it, and they wouldn't do it, so he would go and cut their hands. And if you read a book about Leopold's ghost, he cut 5 million hands, 5 million hands. But if you go to Africa today, talk to the Zairean people, they don't remember that guy. I mean, they had no recollection of their past because they have no recorded history. They don't talk about it. But then the regime changed, and it's worse than before. Nothing changed. So nothing will change economically in this earth. Nothing, unless Baha'u'llah's system is implemented, because it has to be a spiritual revolution that is the basis. I mean, there are good results here and there, but you know, everything is falling apart. You know, if some privileges here, then you have crisis. You look at these poor states. You know, they were doing okay, and then puff, the virus came and knocked everybody down. And you know, and I don't know what's happening elsewhere, but basically, this unevenness in lives across the world, where the South is like in extreme poverty and is not making it, will only change because of teaching. We come back to teaching. And teaching is we teach, but God also has his own way, because we have to be careful that, although we don't want to stress that God is full of wrath, God says, I'm going to punish you. And so you don't want to teach that part because you're afraid people are going to slap you. But he says that, so you can't lie to people. I mean, he's love, but it's his business, it's his world. He created us, so we have nothing to say. You can be unhappy about it. You don't like that God says that, but what is your choice? He tells you, you believe, you're saved. You don't believe, you're not going to be saved. Now, of course, who knows who's saved and who's not saved, because you don't know until you die, right? So you cannot talk about these things. We don't know what happens, so we can't say who's going to go where, because Baha'u'llah says the last minute you can recant your faith. So who knows who is a Baha'i in this world? Only Ruhiya Khanum says the only Baha'i was Shawki Effendi. So basically, God has a plan for this world. I mean, the plan we have is mandated by all the writings and by the House of Justice, and they tell us to do things. They're giving us very precise decisions. Now, the teaching part we're discussing, just feeds into whatever the House of Justice is telling us to do, because it's saying building communities, doing the Ruhi, doing this, doing that. So that's teamwork. I'm not talking about organization or teams. I'm talking about the individual Baha'i, because in this business, we have the individual, the community, and the institutions. Now, some believers are both individuals. They are part of a community, meaning go to a 19-day feast and be part of this and that and team working. And they could be sitting on an institution, or they can be board members. So you can have 3 hats, but at the least you have only 1 hat. That is the Baha'i. So I'm talking to the one that has that first hat, because if you don't wear the first hat correctly, no hat is going to be useful to you. I mean, if you don't do the bouquet that I'm suggesting you do, and be proud of it and keep it to yourself between you and God, or share it with friends, like I'm sharing my story of Komono and how this guy is now studying the faith, and I'm going to see who I'm going to be able to talk next. Then you cannot be of use to anybody in the community, because you can still go to feast if you want to. You can go contribute to the fund. So what? So where is the teaching business? So now let me say something else about this teaching business. I was sitting one day in Dr. Davachi's home, who's a pioneer, a major physician, pioneered in Zaire, and of course they were almost killed when the looting happened in Kinshasa in 1991. Then I have a fireside in DC. So one day I went to the fireside in DC, and there's some young guy, but from a great family. He was giving a fireside, because we do firesides. We invite people to talk, and then we get people to attend this fireside. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't pay off. I mean, you know the story of fireside. So I didn't have public firesides. We have many people come, and then sometimes the intimate ones that are more effective. So I don't know why I spoke that day, because I wasn't speaking. I just was telling them why I was in DC. I was in DC because I had a neighbor in France. His name is Lou Smith. He was losing his memory slowly. I don't think he was Alzheimer. And he was all alone, living in France in the house that I bought. I was just next to I bought a house next to a church, or next to maybe 2 churches. I mean, there's so many churches in Chartres where we live. But this is Saint-Aignan, very close by. So he was closing his windows, and I saw him and says, I hear you're American. He says, yeah. So we became kind of friends. And his wife had died long ago. He was all by himself. And so I helped him by, whenever I was in France, we'd go out for coffee. He wanted to always get a hamburger, and we chat and this and that. And then he would tell me about his daughter, who was a German. He adopted her, and how he wasn't getting along with many people in the city because he was getting stubborn and difficult. But finally, his friends of his, which they were not really that many great friends, but they hated me because I was taking care of him. They somehow managed to get into his account and forced him to move out of Chartres and go and live in the States. So they got him into a home in Gaithersburg, a place called, what is the name of it? Like, it's like 1,000 apartments. And she pumped his account, paid $80,000 to get him a place to stay. And he sort of accepted because he was feeling that nobody wanted him in the city and he couldn't get rid of his things. He would go to because he wanted to sell the house and he was told that he couldn't sell it unless he emptied it. He would go to the trash can and throw away his computer and I don't know what he threw away. And then he started shipping his books to the States because he was leaving. And so I helped him throughout all this. And they even took him, I paid my ticket, I flew with him. I took 6 suitcases with me, his suitcases, took him to that apartment that he was finally, was told to live in there. And he was so unhappy because he didn't want to be there. He wanted to go to Maine because his wife died in Maine and she was buried in Maine. He wanted to go to Maine. And these guys, because they lived in Gaithersburg, they thought that it was best for him to be in Gaithersburg. And he was so upset. So I went to the States more than once. I even took him myself to Maine. I flew him. He's 90 years old. I took him to Maine by plane. I flew him once. I drove him once. I took him to his wife's cemetery. I mean, I tell you, it's a long story. The point is that I was trying to do whatever he wanted. And to the people that were taking care of him, that used his money to book him into that prison, were upset at me and they called me a criminal. Anyway, so when I was in that, to make it a long story short, he has passed away now. And that was like my mission in life for 2 years. I mean, you don't believe how much energy I put in trying to get him there. And I have recordings of him that I'm going to probably put one day on YouTube. It was the kinds of things he was telling me. But people say that he was losing his mind a little bit because his memory was going. He could remember many things, and so on and so forth. It was very sad. But he still wanted to go to Maine to die there. He didn't want to die there. So I told that story in the fireside. I tried to explain why I was there. So the 2 ladies that were sitting there in the fireside, when they listened to what I had to say, they were impressed. Their implication was that that's what we are looking for in Baha'is. And I don't know if you get the story. They're looking for things that you do. Now, I don't set up myself as an example of anything, but that's a true story. I mean, I really, my wife can tell you how much money I spent just to take, I had to go to court in front of the judge to defend him, and I mean, it's just a long, it would take maybe 10 Zooms to tell you the story of this thing. So, but the point is that this woman in Fireside were so excited. They said, wow, it's like, wow, this is good. Like that's what we like to hear. So the point is that what we do,
emphasize what you did. I mean, Dad went specifically for him to France. He took him specifically to the United States. Then he took him straight. I mean, this was like many, many trips. They took a trip where he had 6 of his suitcases. The family of this guy hated my dad, and they were so opposed to him, like very mean.
Anyway, I don't think the French. I don't think the French want to get into that. But the point is that the perception of the ladies at that fireside was, wow, it's like, doing good to people. So of course we can't always be. I had an opportunity because I was there, and they were saying, what on earth are you doing? You come from Africa. What are you doing? What are you doing here No, I came because I'm helping Lou. I had a court appointment. I had to even pay lawyers. I must have spent thousands of bucks just to pay for lawyers that totally useless because they wouldn't allow me to speak in court. So again, what we do, our lives, if you say examples and all that, if we are nice to people, and all of you, I mean, I don't know all of you. I cannot speak, but I can assume that all of you are true Baha'is and true examples, and that's how you're going to get people to look at you, and those reactions are going to be part of your bouquet. Because again, you've got to start doing this bouquet. The bouquet is an offering to Baha'u'llah what you've done, because you may have forgotten who you've been teaching, but if you start thinking deep down, if Esther starts talking about all the people she's been teaching in Eastern Europe or Ukraine or wherever she was all over the place, and so forth and so on, and and Sylvian will tell you the same thing. And I'm sure that if we look at Pete Baldwin or talk about Valeh Abbasi, I mean, I don't know, you guys have your stories. So that's one of the points I also wanted to make before I stopped talking. So, yeah, I think I said a lot of what I wanted to say today, actually. Um, so this teaching business, this bouquet business, is because there's the teaching, there's the planting the seed, there's the proclaiming. All these things that we do, they're very diverse things. They are part of what we do, and even in areas where you can't really speak that freely, you're going to have to find very imaginative ways of just putting the word out. You're going to have to find, even you have cards that you give to people, either you put pins, you put a clothes with Baha'i on it, because you see, this faith is actually, it's a cause, it's a project, it's a cause, it's a construction project. Because when you see in some cities all these people working for Save the Children, or I don't know, what are these, all these human rights things. I mean, there's so many causes in this world. We are all of that, if you will, but we are sort of, there's a spiritual basis, and it's a religion, but we don't, it's a faith, it's a cause, it's a faith, it's a cause. So, and we are trying to get people enrolled in this cause. We have membership. Sheikh Effendi was really counting the numbers. He was so excited. He wanted to know how many were became, because it's all about numbers, and you've got to get the numbers up, because even if you listen to some of the talks of Hand of the Cause, William Sears, he says that, if you're 2% of a country, that's like alcohol in 2% alcohol in wine is probably not strong enough. Probably have to have, I never drank, so I don't know, but I would say 5% or something, or 10%. I mean, 2% is probably like drinking apple juice, So we've got to find ways to do it. And so here we're talking about individual actions. I'm not talking here about what institutions do. I'm not doing the kinds of things my daughter talks about. She's into more deepening Zooms. She does things about the letters of the House of Justice. I'm sort of talking as in the nitty gritty, down to earth people that have to get up in the morning and say the prayers, and maybe go out the street and maybe find somebody and mention it to somebody that is either close by to him, because that person, maybe you can see him a second or third time. And hopefully the ones close to you, you better watch out how you teach, because if they are passing through in a bus, it don't matter what you say, because in the end, you never see them again, or in a plane, or in a boat, a train, a bus. But if they are like within 1 mile radius of your house and you don't do it properly, it's going to be kind of funny to see them again the next day or the week after, because if you didn't do it in a way that you feel good about it without having pushed, you don't know how they look at you. And you don't want people to point fingers, say, oh, look at this person. So it's very, very funny. You don't want to say anything that's going to make people kind of. So in those cases, you may be itching to talk, but you don't know how to talk. So you're gonna have to find a way. Be imaginative. Put a pin in your thing. Put a flashing light on your hat that says, you have to do something crazy, because you never know among those people who is going to jump and be happy, because you don't want people to blame you and tell you, how come you never told me? Because we read in the writings that one day the people are going to come jumping at you. Like it's going to be 1,000-fold. I mean, the 1,000 you never talked to will come bursting your door and say, how come you never told us about this? You let us sort of in the darkness. What for? So because of that, as Ruhiya Khanum says, responsibility, you're going to have to find creative ways of sharing, really creative ways of sharing. And I'm sure all of you have done quite a bit, but the point is that whoever, if you haven't done as much as Ruhiya Khanum or Dr. Muhajir or Martha Root, that means you still have room to go, right? You still have maybe another 1,000 people to go to. So, and one of my points is that we've got to do this and really be happy, because the worst thing you want to do is get involved in teaching and be unhappy or stressful, because sometimes you're in situations where you don't really want to, you don't want to speak, or you're cornered, and just feel uneasy. So you've got to feel easy. Now, one way of feeling good is just to give somebody a book or send him a pamphlet. One guy, I remember, one of the guys that is a technician, works for me. And because now we are into WhatsApp, you know, so this is fine ways of teaching. I'm telling you, WhatsApp and Zoom stuff is amazing. This is God-given stuff. There was no WhatsApp and Zoom in the time of Jesus, in case you were wondering. I mean, you know, this is amazing stuff. And so I sent stuff in WhatsApp. Like I had, my daughter was doing, she's doing all this creative stuff all the time, putting things in decorating quotations. And she had done something for the Rizwan, where each day had a quotation with beautiful design. So I just sort of, this guy that repairs my generator, because we had generators in the other house. Electricity goes out every other day. So he comes and repairs them. So I sent him a quotation, you know, and he says, thank you very much, you know. Didn't react, didn't ask why I sent it to him, didn't ask him where it comes from. But so I said, so this one went out. So I'm keeping an eye, keep thinking of him. So if we think of people, so this is another thing I want to tell you about the bouquet business. If you teach somebody or you mention to somebody and you think you've planted a tree, and you haven't really planted anything because the guy didn't get it, but you feel good about having done it. Okay, you follow me? You think you've done something good, but the guy didn't get it. He doesn't know why you sent it to him, and he reads the words, doesn't understand the words. If you think of him, I mean, you can pray for him if you want to. I mean, if you're into prayers, just pray for everybody. But I mean, if you're not praying, if you just think of him, trying to find a way of getting to see him again, maybe that counts as somebody who is in your headlights. You know, you really think he is good, and so you're trying to find ways. So it may take you maybe a month of thinking about him. Why not? You have to think of somebody, or 6 months or a year. I don't care, but that's your guy. That's your friend. And maybe you'll find the opportunity. If you keep thinking of him, he's going to maybe come out and one day say something funny. Like, wow, I really liked what you sent me. So that is easy because you can throw things in WhatsApps, in emails, you know, just, you know, that doesn't have to be public stuff like when you have accounts, you know, and all these people. And remember that these days, people have become extremely silly about the way they do jokes and all that. You know, I mean, I've seen Facebook, all kinds of people, all kinds of stuff that is about animals or play on words. I mean, people have nothing to do anymore. But I mean, it passes time, but that's okay. It's a waste of time to just look at two dogs talking or these jokes, or people are playing with words and they keep playing. There's so many play on words, it's unbelievable, but they're funny. But you know, it doesn't go anywhere. You know, what does it teach you? How does it help you live? So if we can use, instead of going to the public fora, you're going to individual stuff to somebody and send something. If you don't want to talk to him in person, or you don't want to give him a big fat book, but you want to just give him a quotation, you know, that's fine. So there must be maybe 100 ways that we don't think of in the Western world. In Africa, it's different because, or South America, is because people really, you know, you can leave the street right now and you talk to people, they all listen to you. If you have pamphlets and prayer books, they all take it. Then you have to follow up. Then you have to sort of catch up with them. Like right now, the guards outside my house here, this is a compound. They married 10 guards talking about soccer and about I don't know what. I mean, I could go out right now and give them something, you know, but I don't want to do it right this second now because I have to find ways of doing it because we are new in this place. But they will gladly enjoy it. They're probably all Christian and they all probably don't want to change their faith, but you never know what will happen. Like our friend from Japan, you see how he was disgruntled because the way they talked to him wasn't very pleasant. And so he was open when Agnes Alexander came to Japan and talked to him.